Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, something massive is happening in the world of global defense and geopolitics. Iran has officially hosted Chinese fighter jets on its soil, and this move has just changed the entire balance of power across the Middle East and beyond. The presence of Chinese warplanes in Iran isn't just a symbolic gesture. It's a clear signal to Washington, NATO, and every major military power that Beijing is now taking an active, physical role in reshaping the strategic map of Eurasia. This event isn't just about military cooperation. It's about the rise of a new axis of power, one that brings together China, Russia, and Iran in ways that the West did not expect this soon. Iran has been under pressure for decades. Economic sanctions, political isolation, and constant threats of military strikes have pushed Tehran to find powerful allies. For years, that meant turning toward Moscow for advanced weapons and diplomatic protection. But now, with China stepping directly into Iran's military sphere, we're seeing something completely new, a deeper, more technological, and more ambitious partnership. The arrival of Chinese fighter jets marks the beginning of what analysts are calling the Eastern Coalition era, a defense partnership that could rival the influence of NATO in the long run. These Chinese jets are believed to be advanced models, possibly variants of the J-10C or even the stealth, capable J-20 being tested in cooperative exercises. If this is true, it would mean that China is sharing not just its presence, but also its cutting-edge aviation technology with Iran. Such a move would give the Iranian Air Force access to modern radar systems, electronic warfare suites, and air-to-air missile systems that they've never had before. For decades, Iran has relied on outdated American F-14s from the 1970s and Russian MiG and Sukhoi models. With Chinese technology, that balance changes overnight. But why would China take such a bold step? The answer lies in strategy. Beijing knows that controlling global influence means more than just economic partnerships. It means creating military footholds in critical regions. The Middle East is one of the most strategic zones on the planet, sitting between Asia, Europe, and Africa, and controlling vital oil and gas routes. By hosting fighter jets in Iran, China is establishing a direct military connection to this region for the first time. This could allow Beijing to project power, protect its investments, and respond to any Western military activity that threatens its interests. For Iran, this development is nothing short of a lifeline. The Iranian Air Force has been struggling for years to modernize. Despite a strong missile program and powerful air defense systems, Iran's fighter fleet has remained its weakest point. The arrival of Chinese aircraft could fill that gap and provide Tehran with a real deterrent against Israeli or American airstrikes. More importantly, Chinese support comes without the political conditions that Western nations typically demand. China doesn't care about Iran's internal politics. It cares about its strategic position. That's a partnership built on mutual interest, not ideology. The joint exercises reportedly taking place in Iran are not just routine drills. They represent a shift in how countries like Iran and China view military cooperation. Instead of one-sided arms deals, these are integrated training sessions where both sides learn from each other's combat experience. Iran's expertise in drone warfare, missile tactics, and asymmetric operations is of great value to China, while Beijing brings superior fighter technology, radar integration, and long-range strike capability. Together, they form a complementary defense ecosystem that could change how wars are fought in the 21st century. For the United States and its allies, this is a serious concern. Washington has always maintained dominance in the Persian Gulf through its bases, carrier strike groups, and air superiority. But the presence of Chinese fighter jets in Iran introduces a new level of unpredictability. It means American aircraft flying near the Gulf could be tracked, monitored, or even intercepted by Chinese pilots operating under joint command structures with Iran. The intelligence sharing potential between China, Iran, and Russia could also undermine Western surveillance efforts across the region. Let's not forget the timing. This move comes amid growing tensions over Taiwan, the South China Sea, and Western sanctions on Russia. China is clearly sending a message. If the West can build alliances around its borders, Beijing can do the same. By aligning with Iran, China gains access to critical geographic leverage. Iran sits at the crossroads of the Middle East, Central Asia, and the Indian Ocean, providing a launch point for both economic and military operations. In essence, China is planting a flag right in the middle of the region, most closely watched by the U.S. military. There's also an energy dimension here. China is the largest buyer of Iranian oil, despite international sanctions. Their cooperation extends to infrastructure, energy pipelines, and technology exchange. Military cooperation is the natural next step. By protecting Iran, China indirectly protects its energy supply chain, ensuring that any Western interference in the Gulf will come at a higher cost. This is part of Beijing's broader Belt and Road Initiative, a massive project designed to secure trade routes across Eurasia and reduce dependence on U.S.-controlled sea lanes. Meanwhile, Israel is watching closely. Any advanced fighter presence in Iran, especially those equipped with Chinese radar and missile systems, changes Israel's military calculus. The Israeli Air Force, known for its precision strikes, would now have to contend with aircraft that might detect or even counter stealth jets. This development could force Israel to rethink its approach to preemptive operations or long-range missions over hostile airspace. For decades, Israel relied on having total air dominance in the region. That dominance is now being quietly challenged. Russia, too, benefits from this partnership. Moscow has long supported Iran's defense growth, but has been constrained by its own war commitments and international sanctions. With China stepping in, Russia gains a stronger ally in the Middle East that shares its opposition to U.S. dominance. The three nations, Russia, China, and Iran, are now coordinating more closely than ever, not only diplomatically, but militarily. Joint naval drills, intelligence exchanges, and technology sharing are becoming the new normal. This tripolar alliance could soon extend to other nations frustrated with Western policies, such as North Korea, Syria, or even some African states aligned with Chinese investment projects. From a geopolitical perspective, the hosting of Chinese fighter jets in Iran represents a shift from the old world order. The post-Cold War era was dominated by Western influence, with NATO expanding and U.S. military bases surrounding key regions. But now, China is demonstrating that it can project power far beyond its borders. It doesn't need to build permanent bases like the U.S. It simply builds deep partnerships that achieve the same effect. This model is cheaper, smarter, and politically harder to counter. Inside Iran, the government is celebrating this development as a victory for independence and strength. State media calls it proof that Western isolation has failed. Iranian officials say that by welcoming Chinese forces, they're joining a new era of multipolar balance, a world where no single power dictates global order. For the Iranian people, who have endured years of economic hardship, this cooperation is being sold as a path toward technological advancement and international respect. Whether it actually delivers on that promise remains to be seen, but the symbolism is powerful. China, on the other hand, is playing a more subtle game. Official statements describe the deployment as part of mutual training and regional stability initiatives. Beijing avoids direct confrontation in its words, but its actions speak volumes. The People's Liberation Army Air Force is gaining valuable experience by operating in desert and mountainous environments similar to the Middle East battlefields where the U.S. has long held an advantage. This gives Chinese pilots real-world exposure outside Asia, preparing them for global operations in the future. Military analysts believe this move is just the beginning. We could soon see joint missile defense drills, cyber warfare collaboration, and shared satellite communication systems between Iran and China. Such developments would allow both nations to operate more effectively together in case of conflict. Imagine a future where Iranian drones share targeting data directly with Chinese jets, or where Chinese radar systems feed live intelligence to Iranian missile batteries. That level of coordination would make any potential attack against Iran far more complicated. Of course, the West will respond. Expect to see more U.S. and NATO military exercises in nearby regions, new sanctions targeting Chinese defense companies, and increased diplomatic pressure on nations working with Tehran. Washington cannot ignore this challenge. It undermines its long-standing influence in one of the world's most sensitive regions. But the problem for the U.S. is that both China and Iran have become increasingly sanction-proof. They've built alternative trade networks, digital currencies, and military supply chains that don't rely on Western systems. That's what makes this new alliance so difficult to break. At a deeper level, this situation highlights how technology has become the new weapon of diplomacy. It's not about who has more soldiers or bases anymore. It's about who controls the data, the radar signatures, the satellite imagery, and the electronic warfare networks. China's technological strength gives Iran an edge that it's never had before, while Iran's battlefield experience gives China practical insights that it couldn't get from simulations alone. Together, they are evolving into a hybrid power that merges East Asian precision with Middle Eastern resilience. If you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, you'll see that the world is entering a new phase of competition. The U.S.-led order is being tested by coalitions that don't play by the old rules. China doesn't seek open conflict. It seeks to slowly erode Western dominance by building connections that cannot be easily severed. Iran, by hosting these jets, has just joined that strategy in full. This move won't just affect military balance, it will ripple through global energy markets, diplomatic alignments, and future conflicts for years to come. In conclusion, the arrival of Chinese fighter jets in Iran is not an isolated event. It's a declaration that the global order is shifting. It shows that nations once isolated are now forming their own powerful alliances, built not on ideology but on shared opposition to Western control. It signals that the era of single superpower dominance is ending, replaced by a world where influence comes from cooperation, technology, and strategic placement. Whether you view it as a threat or a necessary balance, one thing is certain: the game has changed and the pieces are already moving. The world will be watching closely as this partnership develops. The Middle East may soon look very different, with new players in the sky and new alliances shaping the future of warfare and diplomacy. China and Iran have just drawn a new line in the sand, and it's one that the West can no longer afford to ignore.